Alright, well, Techland and Mr. Timon, they are back at it again. And I call him Mr. Timon because I am not going to butcher his last name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, with that being said, Timon is back at it again. Guys, if you don't know who he is, he's the lead designer behind Dying Light 2. He plays a very important role with this game. Also, keep in mind, he does a ton of interviews and he gets asked all kinds of things and he's like responded to so many different things, and they've made articles on it. I've made YouTube videos on it, so he does talk about a lot. Like, where's your survival build, Timon? Let's introduce that survival build into Dying Light 2. Alright, getting back to the task at hand here. He did say yesterday on Twitter, okay, since I'm at it again, I hear this talk if we want Dying Light 2 to be more like Dying Light 1. And I know exactly what he's talking about because I've seen this in tons of the comments and all the videos I've done in Dying Light and Dying Light 2, because I have some things on my mind, but would you care to elaborate? We're trying to define the secret juice as precisely and as possible, and your voice is going to help. Alright guys, so we're going to try to help out Techland and Mr. Timon here, because sometimes the things that are on his mind aren't always the best. But it's all love, Timon. I really appreciate all the hard work you and everyone at Techland does. Now, let's go to some of the Twitter responses, because before I come up with like any of my ideas or thoughts on this whole thing, I always want to go to the community first. But for the order of this video, my tweet is going to come first. So this was my response to this. I said, oh, this is juicy. Thanks, Timon. Dying Light 2 doesn't even compare to the first game in terms of looting, weapon effects, weapons. Add a whole new collection of scrap guns. 85% of your players want guns or lore-friendly guns, and I'm obviously referring to the community post that I did where I asked you guys if you wanted to see guns in Dying Light 2, and it was 85% that want to either see guns or lore-friendly guns in the game. Alright, let's go to the community here and look at a few posts, Twitter posts responding to this whole thing. And first up is Savage J. He says, more scary looking atmosphere is a huge thing, definitely more variety of weapons. We are totally fine with no guns. We'll see about that. We get a handful every so often, crying about it, but me, I don't know why everyone thinks if you ask for guns you're crying about it, but whatever. I'm on the New Game Plus for the second time and on PS5, and the weapons are stuck on repeat. Now I wanted to highlight this one. If there are good weapons, they're basically locked. You don't get them. It's the same ones that are like on repeat. So for God's sake, Techland, please remove the cap on our stash, make it unlimited like Dying Light 1. You're saying you want to make your game more like Dying Light 1. Well, this is how you can do it. You can make the stash unlimited, and you can add a ton of new weapons into the game. Right now, all these new legendary weapons, there's only like 5 or 10 of them. The Rude Stick, the Katana, the same ones. I've been saying this over and over. I'm like a dead horse just beating my head against a brick wall. Like, you gotta fix this. Alright, up next is Cheesy. First things first, proper nighttime. A little darker. I know that there's like moonlight shining and stuff, but it just doesn't quite feel the same as it did in Dying Light 1, if that makes any sense. And it does, Cheesy. A lot of people have been saying this, and so this is a good comment. I wanted to highlight this. It is the environment that could be changed or tweaked a little to definitely make Dying Light 2 more like Dying Light 1. Alright, up next is Bryce Kitson. He says, the big thing for me is all the animations in combat. Enemy hit reactions in the first game were a lot more ragdoll based. It feels like enemies reacted exactly to what I was doing and where I was hitting them. The animations in Dying Light 2 are nice, but not nearly as satisfying. I think this is a great point from Bryce Kitson that he's making here. It's not like the combat is horrible in Dying Light 2, but there's just like a certain few elements or animations that were in the first game that are missing in the second game. Alright, now moving on to the last Twitter response that we're going to get into my 4 or 5 things I think they can do. Alright, this is from Critch. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, but he says, or she says, other than scarier nights, bring back being able to find blueprints for weapons, like makeshift guns that last a good while or some fun new weapon blueprints. Those were some of the best loot to find in Dying Light 1 and almost absent in the second game. And again, I totally agree with this excellent point right here. Finding these blueprints was like a really key factor to looting in Dying Light 1, which made the game good. You get new weapons or guns, you want to get some new blueprints, you want to look up online, hey, what are the best blueprints, and you want to be able to mess around with your weapons a little bit and craft some really cool stuff, and it is severely lacking in Dying Light 2. So Techland, Timon, if you want to make Dying Light 2 more like Dying Light 1, this is a great one right here. Alright guys, we're almost done with this, but some of these highlighted Twitter responses fit perfectly in line what I would recommend. So the things that I could come up with, I could only come up with 4. The 5th one is just blank. So keep in mind guys, if I forget anything or miss anything, definitely leave it in the comments. A lot of these videos I do on the fly, even though sometimes I do try to think about stuff before I actually make a video. Now the first one for me on the list that Techland can do to make Dying Light 2 more like Dying Light 1 is the loot/looting. Now the previous tweets already basically highlighted this problem in a very efficient way, how the legendary or the top gear is on this basically this loot. There's only about 10 weapons in the loot pool. they need to remove the cap on the stash, make it unlimited, make it 500, whatever, and add some of these really cool weapons into the loot pool. Legendary versions. People want to go out and farm weapons. They want to be able to get cool weapons, not get the rude stick, 50 straight times. Why is it in Dying Light 2 we have to farm the best weapons from these legendary encounters, right? You would think, guys, that they would want us to go into these dark zones to farm loot, where there's volatiles, maybe volatile nests, scary-ass zombies. That's where you find some of the best loot. So whoever's working on this thing when it comes to the whole loot angle for Dying Light 2, just step it up, make some changes, make some tweaks. I think you guys can get it. And I do want to add real quick too, when it comes to finding blueprints, this is really essential and such a good idea, because in Dying Light 2, basically to get your blueprints for your weapon effects, you just buy them. There's no sense of exploration and trying to find different things. So if they were to add some new blueprints, instead of giving it to the quartermaster, can you just hide them in the game and make people find these? People love that about Dying Light 1, all the different blueprints that you can go out and find in the world, and then you can mess around with your weapons and try different effects. I think the weapons are lacking a little bit when it comes to the weapon modification angle. All right, number 2 on the list is the environment, and a lot of people, like the previous tweet said, a lot of people do want the game more scary, they want it darker. I think it's just a combination of tweaks that Techland can make to make this process happen and make this game feel more like Dying Light 1. Dying Light 1, yes, it was darker, but these volatiles that were roaming the streets at nighttime were definitely scary, and I know Techland is trying to make this work. One thing that I don't really like is the current setup for the chases. You have chase level 1, 2, 3, 4, and different zombies come out. I get the whole purpose of why Techland is doing this. They want to make it more harder. As you progress through your chase, different zombies come out, you get more XP for doing it, so I understand their system. I just don't really like it. It almost feels like it's copied or / predetermined. Every single chase is basically the same, and they're almost predictable, so I would almost like them to scrap the whole idea of the chase, essentially 1 through 4, and maybe switch it up. It doesn't have to be 1 through 4. When a chase starts, maybe some volatiles will start chasing you in, a variety of different zombies. I just want more. I just want things to change a little bit with the game flow and not be so predictable. The third thing on my list, guys, is combat, and again, this was highlighted by one of the tweets. They want to be able to break bones, snap necks, certain animations to break free of the zombies that grab you, and then the virals that jump on you. Right now, there's no way to stop them, so you could throw in some animations to kind of stop the virals from jumping on you, but I think overall, people just love that aspect from Dying Light 1. Some could say, well, in Dying Light 1, Kyle Crane was a badass GRE agent and had those skills. Now, Aiden is more of like a parkour master and has more parkour skills than Kyle Crane, so I can get that angle too, if you want to try to say that as an argument, but I think bringing back some of the certain animations from Dying Light 1 will do good for Dying Light 2, and people will like that. All right, the fourth thing and the last thing I can actually think of is just more content and DLCs. If you look at Dying Light 1, it didn't start out necessarily the greatest, but over time, all these different DLCs and content and events that Techland would do for the game just really added to it. I think Techland just needs to add some of this stuff to Dying Light 2 over time with DLCs and content. Some can be paid for, some can be free. Definitely do some free stuff for your community, Techland. But the more you just add in terms of DLCs like weapons, outfits, and just different events that you guys do, it's really going to get there. So if you really want to make your game more like Dying Light 1, these are some things you could do. You just focus on what the community is saying, highlighting these things with the loot, the environment, the combat, and just adding more content and DLCs in general. I think it will get there. But that's all I got, guys. You let me know in the comments what you want to see Techland do to make Dying Light 2 more like Dying Light 1. There's a long list of things we could talk about to make Dying Light 2 better, because you got to remember, this game is supposed to be built off the foundation of Dying Light 1. It's supposed to be better than Dying Light 1. It doesn't have to be exactly like Dying Light 1, but it just needs to be better. It just needs to take some things that worked really, really well in Dying Light 1, and they were supposed to add it into Dying Light 2, and I'm sure Techland felt like they were doing this, but some things may have fallen flat. That's why they're asking the community, like, hey, what can we do? And this is what I got. You guys let me know in the comments what you want to see. What did I miss? Everyone, drop a like on this video if you appreciate the work I do. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys soon.